Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to a very new version of Moshiach Ali podcast. Camera. So this is Rabbi Zevi Weinberg, and I'm with my co-host, my dear wife, Rebbetzin Adina, who's well known as an amazing teacher in seminaries and one of the program directors, and we are the Rabbi and Rebbetzin in a great youth hostel/hotel where Jews, you're all welcome to come. It's called Ascent. Look it up, Ascent in Spot. We'd love to see you for Shabbat. Now, the Tanya, we have the new lessons in Tanya, which is beginning to, actually it began yesterday. It's the new cycle. We go through an entire year. And before I start, maybe I'll ask Adina. Adina, maybe you can tell us a little bit. The Tanya is called in Jewish mysticism the Bible of Jewish mysticism. What is so great about the Tanya? Why should people be listening to our podcast on it or studying it at all?
The Tanya is a book of Chassidus, and it's unique in that it's a kind of a practical guide. The first book is a practical guide to how to kind of live. We're spiritual beings in physical bodies. So the Alter Rebbe is the first Rebbe of Chabad Chassidus, and his style of teaching Chassidus was slightly different in terms of the just a little background, like the Hasidic movement before that was very much about giving somebody an experience, a spiritual experience, and taking them up to a place where they're experiencing godliness, and they kind of are abandoning their physical self, and so they're being lifted up to a place higher than themselves. And the Alter Rebbe teaches Chassidus in a way where we're using our Chabad is Chachma, Bina, Das is wisdom, understanding, and knowledge. So it's really, we're using our internal faculties as people to understand godliness with the tools that I have as a human being here on this planet, as a person living my daily life. So on the New Year of Chassidus, which it commemorates the day that the Alter Rebbe, the first Chabad Rebbe, was released from being imprisoned, which has a whole backstory. You'll have to look for another video, and Rabbi Weinberg will explain that. So we restart the book of the Tanya every day, and the word Tanya means it starts with a verse from our Talmud, but Tanya means it is taught. So that's really why it's called the Tanya, because it's a book of teachings. So, and we learn every word. We consider every word is the same way that we live. We have holidays, and that's the energy of the time of the year. When we learn a little bit of the Tanya every day of the year, we're saying that energy is the energy of the year. So even though right now we've just kind of finished through the introduction in these past 3 days, we're going to try to draw out the lesson. It's not just an introduction to some book where you're like, oh, I'll skip the intro. It's like, no, every word means something, which also in our lives, everything means something. It keeps our consciousness like that, which my husband likes to talk about a lot. And I hope that was a good intro.
That's great. And also, we were discussing before we did the show, we were discussing a little bit about the Tanya. And really the Tanya is, I think I've had the privilege of translating some books of the Baal Shem Tov. You can check out my website, KabbalahWisdom.org, or Amazon. And as I say, yeah, no, I don't really make much money, but it's a resource. But we should, you're right. Then, but the point is that the Tanya really is very interesting, because the Alter Rebbe says this, and I think a lot of people don't realize it. It really is the wisdom of the Baal Shem Tov. So when you study the wisdom of the Baal Shem Tov, you really see, wow, the Alter Rebbe. And we know that the Tanya is based on, as he writes in the introduction, which my grandfather, who wrote the very famous lessons in Tanya, and the Rebbe edited, so it's authoritative. So they say that when the Alter Rebbe was referring to who he based the Tanya on, it's called the Kutei Amarim, a collection of sayings, because they're not his sayings; it's a collection of other great rabbis' sayings. They're mainly the Maharal of Prague, one of our greatest saints. The Shalach HaKodesh, again, one of the great Kabbalists, one great amazing book. They're both unique in their style and having kind of Jewish mysticism, but also that's practical, what we call a Veda, very relevant to your life. And last but not least, the holy teachings of the Baal Shem Tov and his master, the Maggid, and Rabbi Nachman Mendel of Vitebsk, who ironically was here in Sfas for a little bit. So these great masters, and he collected it. And what's unique about the Tanya is, similar to one of the great books, Reishis Chachma, is it creates a practical guide in life. It's not just information. The Tanya is a how-to book in dealing with the internal struggle, because we all have an internal struggle. Now, in fact, the Baal Shem Tov says a Jew is somebody who is a spiritual warrior. Whether you like it or not, you're a spiritual warrior, because we all have God, which is our essence, goodness, and we also have a Yetzer Hara. We have a predilection, whether it's for fear, we have desires that are not healthy, and we all have to fight those things. And often in life, we're seeing this. You'll have societies, as one of the greatest rabbis, the author of Rabbeinu Bechaya, the author of Chovot HaLevavot, who's ironically buried here in Tzfat as well, Rabbi Ibn Pekuda, Rabbeinu Bechaya is his name, sorry. So he says that, what happens in societies as prosperity kicks in, so then people start following their instincts, and suddenly they make a religion out of their instincts. But in the end of the day, instincts, as we see this very clearly, unfortunately, that societies, many kind of secular societies, are in fact destined to just self-destruct, not to exist, because they're not even having enough children. So the point is, just following your instincts leads a person into literally annihilation. They don't exist anymore.
Literally, like as you can see in Canada, which we'll save for another video.
Yeah, right. I mean, that's even worse. That's even worse than choosing not to have children. Yes. But and many terrible, like you're saying, we're seeing tremendously self-destructive behavior, whether it's euthanasia, extreme cases of abortion, horrific things that are going on, because a person has good and evil in them. And unless they know how to fight their evil, the evil will take them over. And that's how the Nazis formed. They were normal people, and yet eventually, you want to say something?
Yeah, well, I think that, whatever, I think, maybe off topic, but because I think with the Tanya, we have to, kind of reframe how we speak about these things to ourselves, because I feel like the evil of this world is people feeling like what will make me free is doing whatever I want. And there's so much abundance, and there's so many choices that they're so unhappy, and now they decide, I can just decide to not live anymore, chas v'shalom. So it's really what we call evil in the concept of evil is good, bad. This is trying to hurt me. This is trying this and this. But really, what's evil is when it's not really aligned. It's not really aligned with a higher purpose. Not really aligned with God's plan. If I'm totally just trying, if I think the ultimate good is what's going to make me feel the best in this moment, and I'm just at my every whim, I'm just going to follow. That's not really, because you find oftentimes the person doesn't feel like doing whatever, and then they get dressed and they go out and they feel fine.
Right.
So it's really kind of what really makes a person fulfilled. It's living a higher life, helping other people, giving to other people, having meaning, knowing that I'm loved unconditionally by something great. If I'm only loved as much as I love myself, then that's pretty limited. But if I'm loved by an infinite God who has no bounds, and then I'm pretty safe, and I have a reason to be here. So I don't know, I got on that subject, but I just wanted to define evil, because a lot of times we think evil and we say, oh, I'm not evil. I'm gonna, and I think in the Tanya it goes through that battle that we have inside ourselves, and a lot of times that battle is guilt or blaming myself. A person could come out of that and recognize something created me. I'm here. I'm essentially good, and my evil is often my fears, my misunderstandings, my laziness, whatever it is. It's different in every single person, but I think also redefining what is evil, because when we keep evil in a costume of a big villain, then it's well, not evil, but if we understand the context of it's this not quite aligned thing, then we can work with that.
Yeah, definitely. And the concept of the Tanya really is, because these are subconscious forces, right? So we have within us, as the Tanya, as we'll learn as we go through the Tanya, we basically have within us 5 different forces. And only if you understand all the forces, let's say you have, 5 people in a car, and one says, I want to go to California, one says, I want to go to Florida, one says, so only if you understand that, you understand, okay, we're going to have to negotiate, we're going to have to make some peace here. But if you think that you're one person, then you just start driving to California, start driving to that. So then you start saying, who am I? What's going on in the world? Am I normal? Am I straight? What's happening? So I think, the Tanya is going to tell us that we are made up of different parts. Our We have our mind, our consciousness, which in a way you can almost say is the main person, the person making choices. But then we have a deeper part, which is God, and that's why we are people with conscience. And the Rebbe says our conscience is God, right? That's the God, the goodness and the humility within us. But on the flip side, we also have an animal soul. And the animal soul is just like every animal. It just wants pleasure and not pain. And certain instincts will make you feel good. And just because it makes you feel good doesn't mean it is good. And that's where listening to God, and really the Tanya in a way, as he says in the introduction, is about motivating your love and reverence for God to the point, and you'll see there are many meditations, talk about plugging a book. I have a book, Meditations from the Tanya. We'll try to put some links on the bottom, but that's a really good book because it takes out the practical meditations. Okay, how do I actually love God? Because the word in Hebrew for love is ahava. And ahava has in it the word hav, to give. So when I love to someone, I give to that person. And so when you love God, you're going to help, basically you'll fulfill his will as described in the Torah, because you want to have a connection. And the flip side is, if you fear God or have reverence for God, you're not going to do the sins that he describes. So really, goodness is defined by God, and then we then have an opportunity to overcome the part of us that just wants to do things because it makes me feel good, to really focus. And as the Tanya will say, we all have the ability to self-discipline. It's a lie that, oh, I have this desire, therefore I have to do it. No, I don't identify with the fact that I like chicken. Okay, I like chicken, but that doesn't define me. I decide what I want to do and what I don't want to do in life. And the Tanya is going to be an amazing guide in how to create self-mastery, understanding yourself. Yeah.
I was just going to say, because this, I just wanted to bring out a couple points of the most person going all the way into the Tanya, just bring out the points from these past 3 days.
Yeah, go for it. Go for it.
No, I.
Want me to do it?
Well, we can. Should we start with like the opening verse, the Kikaro?
Yeah, go for it.
So, okay, because it's gonna go into the Tanya and all this battle and all the parts of ourselves.
On track here.
All the parts of ourselves, and we're gonna get there to all these bigger things. But it begins with there's a verse in the Torah at the end in the book, right? Kikaro ve'elecha hadavar ma'od b'ficha v'levavcha la'asoso, right? Yeah. It says this thing is very close to you. It's in your mouth and it's in your heart to do it. So really, the mouth is like our thoughts, and the heart is like kind of like our speech. And because a person speaks from the heart, and to do it is action, because we're really working on the thought, speech, and action. So and we're told this verse in the Torah is Moshe Rabbeinu, before we're going into Eretz Israel, he's saying, like, you can do it. You've been in the desert for 40 years. You've witnessed miracles. You're going to go into a land where things are going to be the natural way of being. Like, it's not just out there in the sky. It's not just a miracle land. Like, you are able to conquer you're able to, like, take ownership of Eretz Israel, and each Jew is Eretz Israel. You're able to take ownership of this city, which the city is really ourselves. So saying some of these concepts in this book are going to sound really hard, and if we don't understand it, which is kind of the next point we're going to make, I guess, with how we understand it, then it can seem like it's an impossible feat and nobody can ever do it. But he's saying this is possible. It's possible for us to live a centered life. It's possible for us to live with some God consciousness. It's possible for us to live with our healthy emotions of love and reverence of the divine, and to live in our sovereignty. Like, so he's saying this is possible. Like, and that's really, like, I guess that was the kind of lesson that I took from the first day, that was a couple days ago, of Tanya, was kind of that point of, like, because, we learn it every year. How many times have I gone through it? But, like, I'm really like, no, I really want to do it this time. Like, and, every year, same thing. But, like, okay, let's go. Let's start again. But that point really stuck out. Like, it is possible. It's not, and we learn tiny, little by little every day. And so, so we're all on this journey together.
Great.
That's kind of the first point I took.
Okay, beautiful. And I'll share the point that I took. And the point that I took, which was from today's Tanya, is a very, very important point. And that is that the Alter Rebbe wrote a book with also divine prophecy. They say whoever studies the Tanya, he's already answered your spiritual questions. There was a group of students that came to the previous Rebbe when he was in America, and they asked him, can you explain to us what is the book of the Tanya? So he said the Tanya is a book like no other, and only if you actually read it will you understand that. It's 100% true. I know a guy, Dr. Trachman, and I asked him how he became religious, and he has a PhD in experimental psychology, a very brilliant man. And he said that, well, he studied the Tanya, and he realized that he actually said you can throw out all of psychology. All you need is the Tanya. And it's anybody that knows, the Tanya is like infinitely greater. I remember listening to one of the greatest psychiatrists in America who was in my community, and he was studying the Tanya with my brother. And there was another guy, Shlomo Weil, who graduated from MIT there. So these are two brilliant people, and they were studying the Tanya, and I overheard the conversation. And one is like looking at the other, and Shlomo Weil just asked the psychiatrist, he says, what do you think about it from a perspective of psychology? And he was like, yes, this is all 100% accurate, is way ahead of its times. So in other words, God gave us the essential truth. God made our souls. So nobody knows us as well as God does. And so if you really want to live a happy life, you got to watch our podcast, because we're going to be going through in a very, very easy to understand way these concepts. Please God, with God's help, He should grace us. Oh, yeah, okay. With the ability to be able to do it. We also ask you for your support. Support us, because we're putting a lot of time and effort into doing this. The Torah comes from Tzfat to the world. We're broadcasting literally from Moshiach Alley in Tzfat. And so we need your support to be able to continue what, please God, will really inspire a lot of people. So the point is, and then we're going to get to you in a sec, the point is that the Tanya contains the answers to every person's spiritual questions. And we really hope that this new, in a way, addition of being able to take the Tanya and making it on a, user-friendly on YouTube will give a lot of people basic inspiration. And as Alter Rebbe himself says, that the Tanya wasn't just a book written. Tanya was the collection that, from the time of the Baal Shem Tov, we had a new genre, really, in Judaism, where people would come to the great masters, the great rabbis, and ask them their personal questions and how to serve God and how to deal with life and all these things. So the Tanya is the collection of answers of these great rabbis to the people. So it's really a collection. It's almost like a question and answer book of people's lives. And you're one of those people. And if you have questions in your life, you need to just basically listen to our podcast, because if we can't help you, no, I'm joking. Okay, what do you want to say?
A couple of things for people that have learned Tanya before, because we were just recently at a talk in Jerusalem with Rabbi Jacobson, and he brought out a very important point. I felt like, because people that have learned Tanya before, some of it can sound like harsh, like I can't do it, and sometimes just the psyche. When it comes to religion, there's like a lot of trauma with like God and religion and good and bad and this and this and this. Sometimes it can play tricks on us, and like we can become harsh on ourselves. And the point that he brought out was that it says in the introduction that Alter Rebbe is, because so many people are coming to him, he's answering those that he knows very well and that they have a loving relationship with one another. And so, and he says, if you're having trouble, like, please find a teacher that can help you, because, and like what he brought out, he said, if you're reading the Tanya and you don't hear words of love, then you're not really learning the Tanya. Like, this is coming from a source that has infinite love and regard for who you are as a person. So it's not to negate what struggles we go through as a person. It's really working with us. It's really all in a context of compassion and love. And so sometimes we have to do a lot of reframing to hear those words coming to us, and compassion and love. But this is a book written out of deep love. We can't imagine the love and the that the Alter Rebbe put into this, and really, like, and all the previous Rebbeim and expounding Chassidus. But it's not from a place of some of the parts might sound like rebuke. It's not from a place of rebuke and whatever. It's a place of coming from a place of deep compassion, love, concern, and so I think that's really important message for anybody.
Okay, great. If you made it here, you deserve the medal. It's not so well done. I want to say a special thank you. First of all, we want to thank God Almighty, who's put us on this planet. He's given us health. He's given us Israel, Tzfat, so many beautiful things. And most of all, I want to thank my dear wife, because she comes with a lot of knowledge and she's sharing that knowledge, and it's really very valuable. We've had a lot of wonderful comments, so thank you for taking the time and taking the effort of coming on the show and sharing, and may God bless you. Any final words?
So everybody should just have a great day, and coming close to us, and try to be present and stay closer to our core, which is like the unbreakable truth. And so everybody should have lots of hatzlacha.
Amen. A lot of luck in staying coming to your essential self, which Tanya will do, and living that essential self. And that's really what it's all about. So God should bless us all with that ability. Thank you for watching. Check out some of the links below in which you can get some of my books, and feel free to support this podcast. We love you, and have a great day. Okay.